It's got the famous pumpkins, stunning scenery, and enough top-notch exhibits to make it Japan's premier art destination. But with a couple of tips and forward planning, you can level up your Naoshima trip to truly stellar levels. And because it's not the easiest place to reach, let's begin with how to get there. The island of Naoshima is in the middle of the Seto Inland Sea, putting it between the cities of Okayama on the mainland and Takamatsu over on Shikoku. You're going to have to go through either of these cities to catch one of the ferries over, so let's look at the two options. The port in Takamatsu is about a 10-minute walk away from the railway station, and ferries across to Naoshima take about 1 hour on the slow boat and 30 minutes on the high-speed version. Apart from flying, the easiest way of getting to Takamatsu is probably, I think, to take the Sunrise Express night train from Tokyo, or simply take a Shinkansen from Tokyo to Okayama and change to a local train. Takamatsu is a good choice for access because although the ferry takes up to an hour, the port is right there in the city, meaning you don't have to go too far to get back to your hotel if you're staying overnight while visiting Naoshima. Of course, the alternative is to travel from the Okayama side, and that means a 3.5 hour ride from Tokyo or 45 minutes from Osaka. Then, to get to Uno Port, you need to take a local train, which takes an additional hour. The ferry only takes 20 minutes from this side, but if you choose to stay in Okayama overnight, just know that it's going to take at least 1.5 hours to get from Naoshima back to your hotel. Staying in Takamatsu is definitely less of a faff. Whichever route you choose to get to Naoshima, you don't need to reserve ferry tickets beforehand, and trains between Okayama and Uno or Takamatsu don't need special reservations either. Personally, I think if you want to spend more than 1 day visiting Naoshima to explore everywhere, you're better off staying in Takamatsu, or even better, somewhere on the island itself. However, if you're just doing a day trip from Tokyo or Osaka, the Okayama route is probably best. This does mean, of course, you'll need to get up at silly o'clock unless you want to run into one of the problems I'll talk about in a moment. Everything on Naoshima is roughly spread across 3 different areas. You've got Miyanoura Port with the I Love You public bath Gaudi artwork hybrid, as well as tourist information, lockers, buses heading off around the island, the only convenience store, some eateries, and bicycle rental shops. Next to the ferry port is also the larger of the 2 pumpkins and another permanent art installation just up the bay. Over on the eastern side, you'll find a small village area with several of the art house exhibits, a museum dedicated to the work of architect Tadao Ando, as well as a ticket office for the art houses, a small supermarket, and a good selection of eateries. And to the south is the museum quarter with the Chichu Art Museum, the Li Unfan Museum, the premium everything Hotel Plus Art Museum, Vanessa House, plus the selfie spot to end all selfie spots, the famous pumpkin out on a small jetty. Around the area you can find a lot of small art installations which make it a great place to just wander around and see what you run into. And believe me, there are some really crazy things to find there. Now, because everything's spread across the island, there's a shuttle bus that runs between each of those 3 zones, and it syncs up very nicely with the ferry departures and arrivals. If you've got plenty of time and you don't mind a touch of exercise, then you can quite easily reach the Art Museum Quarter with ease from the port in about 30 minutes. Combine your legwork with a shuttle ride or 2 to reach the other areas, and it's an absolute breeze to get around. The best alternative, of course, is to get a rental bike for the day. There are several companies set up across the road from the ferry terminal, all with different kinds of bikes and pricing to match. But here's my pro tip: it pays to get to Naoshima as early as you can, unless you want to find all the bikes have been taken. Of course, that's good advice for just maxing out your time on the island for exploring. Well, luckily, there is another option, which is to book ahead. So go and check the link in the description to get yourself sorted out. And while you're down there, drop me a like if you think I'm being helpful. Now, of course, the main event for coming to Naoshima is taking in the incredible art that's hiding in almost every corner here. My personal highlight of all the museums is the Chichu, especially the Claude Monet room, which actually deserves to be described as breathtaking. There's something particularly magical about the way the architecture has been tailored for each of the artworks, and the reliance on natural lighting inside is a genius move. You'll need to visit it to see it, because there's no filming allowed inside, but remember that advance ticket reservations are compulsory. The other pro tip that I want to give you is about the art house installations on the island. It's very similar to what I said about bicycle rental. Just get to the island as early as you can. There's one art house in particular called Miyanoura, which has a visitor limit each day. I think it's the best of the permanent installations. I won't give you any spoilers, but I will highly recommend that you book your slot as soon as you arrive. Actually, since opening hours for the art house installations are also limited, if you want to try and see all of them, it pays to get here early anyway. When it comes to places to eat on the island, there isn't a wide selection to choose from. After all, this is more a residential island supported by the art attractions than the other way around. But that said, the quality of eateries is certainly a lot higher than you'll find in many other rural areas. My personal favourite place for lunch is the cafe Aisanao, right in the heart of the Honmura port area on the eastern side of the island. It's slightly hidden away in one of the village's traditional houses, and eating here feels more like a visit to grandma's for lunch. The menu is vegan and draws from the very best of local produce, and if not local, at least from within Japan. The rich, creamy miso soup is something that makes me want to return, and sure enough, I've been here 3 times. Pro tip here, you need to take off your shoes when you enter, so make sure you put on your best pair of socks in the morning. As with all the other places mentioned in this video, you can check out the description for the Google Maps pins. And if you're looking for the perfect morning or maybe afternoon pick-me-up between museums, I can highly recommend a visit to Francois Coffee Shop. It's not far from the Ishibashi Art House installation, and what the owners there don't know about coffee probably isn't worth knowing. The taste is truly exceptional, especially when you consider you're on a tiny island far from the big cities. And if you want to stay on the island, this is a place to keep in mind, as Francois is also a bed and breakfast. Which brings me to the accommodation options on Naoshima. Staying at the Benesse House Hotel is, as some would say, reassuringly pricey, but for those of us on slightly lower budgets, you should know that it's perfectly doable to find a good place. There are several basic lodging houses, known as minshaku, across the island, a backpackers hostel, more expensive hotels, and even some yurts near the famous pumpkin by the sea. I've stayed at a minshaku here in the Honmura area, and it had everything I needed. It's definitely worth the extra effort of booking ahead to stay on the island, as you'll be rewarded with endless serenity to go with the showstopper scenery here. Just know though, if you're self-catering, there are only 2 proper supermarkets on the island. The most accessible one shuts at 4 PM, and if you're too late for that, then you'll need to head over to the 7-Eleven, which closes at 7 PM. Yeah, really early. Of course, on the luxury side, a stay at Benesse House will have you covered for dinner, so you don't need to worry about a thing. So, what's the draw of Naoshima? Is it the world-class art museums, the gorgeous island coastline, the quirky pumpkins and hidden artwork you run into everywhere? Well, for me, Naoshima has so many different sides, it's surprising at just about every turn. One minute you can be hanging out on the beach with that iconic dot celebration, the next you're up in the forest with a temple shrine mashup and you're in another world. The museums here will make you feel like you're in a mountaintop layer straight out of a Bond movie, but then get down to the town area and you're back in the sleepiness of a Japan that even Japan forgot about. I love to cycle around the island as much as possible, exploring every turn of the narrow streets, complete with all the quirky artwork everywhere. You're never very far from the superb Seto scenery too, though the island is small enough that you're actually never far away from anything. But with so much to see, it still feels big. It's one of the best city escape destinations I can recommend in Japan, even if you're not that big on art. And if you're looking for more hidden gems to explore in this part of Japan, check out this itinerary video, which includes a couple of the best spots in Takamatsu, which you could easily visit before or after Naoshima. Have a good trip, and I'll see you